Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. Today's video is going to be about two interesting scents from the House of Fragrance world, or to be more exact from one of their sub-brands that's called Athoor Al Alam. The first one is called Ishqat Al Lail. It comes in this green bottle, and this one is a clone of Armani's Stronger With You Oud, and the second one is called Ameer Al Sahra, and this one is a clone of Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. I'll start off with the scent that I enjoy more out of the two featured in today's video, and that one is called Ishqat Al Lail Forever. The fragrance comes packaged in this green and golden colored box. On the front you get the name of the fragrance, the bottle size 100 milliliters, the concentration EDP. On the back you get a sticker of authenticity with some additional information, and on the bottom there's a production date which is March of 2023. In order to get to the bottle you need to slide that part of the box out, and once you do that you're greeted by the bottle, which again has the same coloring combination, green color with golden accents. The cap is actually made out of metal, it's quite heavy. The only problem is that it's not a snug fit because the bottle is quite heavy as well. Oh no, the packaging is actually very nice. When it comes to the note breakdown of Ishqat Al Lail Forever, unfortunately I couldn't find a real note breakdown, just three notes listed, and those notes are top note vanilla, middle note agar oud, and the base note is lavender. And I think that on Fragrantica, the original fragrance, has the exact same pretty simplistic note breakdown. The actual scent has a little bit more complexity to it actually. I'll show you the spray in action, then I'll tell you what I pick up out of this scent. The spray is pretty decent. And now onto the fragrance itself. Now this fragrance definitely opens up a little bit fresh. There's something citrusy that's been used here. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there's definitely a citrusy note in the opening of this fragrance that adds a bit of freshness. There's definitely quite a lot of sweetness right from the first second, from that vanilla note which is prominent in this fragrance from the opening to the late dry down. And also there's maybe a touch of spiciness, and also you get a creamy lavender right from the get-go. Again, the lavender is also very prominent and stays with this fragrance throughout its life. When this goes into the dry down, the agar oud starts to show itself up. Now it's not a very strong agar oud note that's been used here. That note is not very strong. It's just somewhere there in the background, adding just a little bit of a sort of a Middle Eastern touch to this fragrance. And also there's one very prominent note that's not listed in this breakdown, and that's the note of leather. So the opening is slightly fresh, sweet, a bit spicy, and the dry down is very sweet, a little bit of woodiness, woodiness from the agar oud, quite a strong leather note, and a bit of sort of a creamy feel out of it because of the lavender. All in all, the scent is actually very nicely blended, and this is a very sort of an unchallenging type of wood scent. When it comes to how close this is to the original fragrance, I would say that it's pretty close. It's not exactly the same, but definitely if you're familiar with the way that Stronger With You Oud smells, you immediately pick up that this fragrance is a clone of that one. And now that leads me onto the topic of the performance, where lies the big problem with this scent. And that's the fact that it just does not perform. Now, when I initially got this fragrance for the first time, I tried it. The initial performance that I was getting out of this fragrance was pretty much abysmal. Now, I've had this for about a month and a half, I think, at this point, and that time in that time period, performance has definitely improved a little bit, but it's still not as good as I would like it to be. Nowadays, after about a month and a half of maceration, maturation, steeping, or whatever you want to call that process of aging the fragrance, it started to become a little bit better in terms of performance, but still gives me about 6 hours of performance, which in my opinion for this scent profile is sort of an underperforming. When it comes to the price tag, I paid about 30 euros to get this fragrance, which Because of the lack of performance, I don't think it's a pretty good deal, to be honest. The scent profile is really nice, it's really nicely blended, I really enjoyed the scent itself, but because of the lack of performance at that price point, I don't think it's a good deal. And moving on to the second scent featured in today's video, Ameer Al Sahra. It comes packaged in this black colored box with some golden accents. Again, on the front you got the name of the fragrance, the bottle size 100 milliliters, the concentration EDP. On the back a sticker of authenticity, some additional information, and on the bottom there's a production date, which is December of 2022. And once you open up the box, this is how the bottle looks. It has a pretty simplistic look. The cap is plastic, feels very cheap, but at least it's a snug fit. All in all, the packaging is more on the simpler side. The note breakdown of Ameer Al Sahra has the following notes. The top notes are tobacco leaf and spicy notes. The middle notes are vanilla, cacao, tonka bean and tobacco blossom, and the base notes are dry fruits and woody notes. Again, I'll show you the sprayer in action and then I'll talk about the scent of this fragrance. Again, another very decent sprayer, excuse me. And now on to the scent of Ameer Al Sahra. As I said in the beginning of the video, this fragrance is a clone of Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille, but it's more like a twist on the original DNA. If you're familiar with the way that the Tom Ford fragrance smells, you'll immediately pick up that Ameer Al Sahra carries a lot of the same vibes, a lot of the same notes, but at the same time it feels quite a bit different, especially in the opening. The opening, to my nose, is dominated by a sort of a very strong cinnamon note. You also get that cacao note. I get that cacao note, but it feels like a raw type of cacao note that feels very bitter, and a very strong tobacco leaf note. But again, not a sweet tobacco note, more like a bitter tobacco note. There's maybe some other spices in the opening, but to my nose the opening is dominated by the bitter tobacco leaf note, the cinnamon, and the bitter cacao. The opening is quite bitter actually, and there's almost no sweetness in the opening of this fragrance. When it goes into the dry down, that's where you start to get introduced to some sweetness. A vanilla note starts to get to show itself up. You also get a bit of that dry fruits, that a bit more sweetness to the dry down of this fragrance, and that's where this thing actually gets closer to the original scent and becomes a little bit more pleasant to wear. When it comes to how close this fragrance is to the original scent, again, it just lacks that sweetness that you get out of the original Tom Ford fragrance. This is like a more bitter take on the original DNA, but at the same time carries a lot of the same vibes that you get out of Tobacco Vanille. When it comes to performance, it's a decently performing fragrance. I've been getting about 7.5 to 8 hours of performance with quite strong and loud projection in the first hour and a half. So performance wise, it's doing okay. When it comes to the price tag, this is a little bit cheaper compared to the other fragrance featured in this video. I paid about 18 euros to get it, which will translate into something like $20. And at that price point, I think it's an okay deal. If you like the original, Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille, and you don't mind a slightly bitter take or twist on that original DNA. And on to my final thoughts about Ishqat Al Lail Forever and Ameer Al Sahra. Ishqat Al Lail Forever has turned out to be a very nicely done clone of Armani's Stronger With You Oud. The scent quality here is very high, it's very nicely blended, and it feels very close to the original fragrance. It gets you very close in that designer take on the oud note that's very easy to wear. And all in all, scent-wise, it's a fantastic fragrance, but it has one big problem, and that's the performance. Unfortunately, even with some maceration, this fragrance has only been giving me about 6 hours of performance. When it comes to Ameer Al Sahra, this is a very interesting take on Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille DNA. It's bitter, more bitter compared to the original fragrance, feels a little bit more rugged, a little bit more masculine compared to the original scent. Still a unisex fragrance in my opinion, but this one with some maceration actually started to become a little bit sweeter on the dry down and become a little bit closer. So I wouldn't recommend this one if you're looking for a straight up clone of Tobacco Vanille. There are better options out there, but if you don't mind a more spicier and bitter take on the original DNA with a pretty decent performance and very low price tag, then you can check Ameer Al Sahra. And so guys, in today's video I showed you two very interesting scents from fragrance world. Ishqat Al Lail Forever, a very good clone of Armani Stronger with You Oud, but with below average performance, and Ameer Al Sahra, an interesting take on Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille DNA with a good performance. I hope that you found this video interesting. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in the next one. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.